And we're back with Joel Barnes again, professor of environmental studies at Prescott College, talking about dams. And a movie is coming to Prescott College this Thursday, 7 o'clock, Prescott College Crossroads Center, absolutely free, about dams in our nation and do we still need them. And you know, you mentioned there were 75,000 dams built in the U.S. in the past 50, 60 years, like really popular, 40s, 50s, 60s. You know, why so many? Why all of a sudden? I mean, it's not like we haven't been around for a while.
Well, we were faced with a decidedly different set of conditions in the western U.S. than we were in the eastern U.S. So as the West was populated and we wanted to grow places like L.A. and Phoenix and Las Vegas, we needed water. And the best idea we came up with is to plug up a river, let the water collect behind that dam, stick straws into that reservoir, and pipe it over to the cities.
Sure, and it's worked.
And it has worked. It's worked for a while. It's worked for a good while.
Right.
But we're realizing that by doing that, we've stretched those river systems thin. And we're realizing that with the changing of our climate, it's really kind of pushing those water systems, those river systems to the edge. I mean, water issues are everywhere. I mean, it's hard to open the Courier without seeing an article about water, even in our local town.
Yeah, especially in the West, as you said. You know, the Pacific Northwest, maybe not so much. The Midwest floods every year, so bring us your water. And I know that California and Las Vegas and us, we're all taking water from, you know, Hoover Dam, for instance. And the Colorado, isn't it one of the most dammed rivers in the nation? It
is. It's because it runs through an affluent country with large cities within reach, technological reach. It's one of the most dammed, plumbed, and over-allocated rivers in the world.
And over-allocated, absolutely. I mean, I've heard it's literally drying up from the end. By the time it hits Mexico, it is just drying up inch by inch because we are not at safe yield, if you want to use a familiar term. We are taking, in other words, more water from it than it is producing and bringing in.
I mean, if you look at the latest news from the California Central Valley, I mean, taps are drying up and people are actually, you know, not getting water to their houses in Central California because of the extreme drought. And so we really are pushing not only our river systems, but our aquifer systems to the edge. And we're in a bit of a conundrum right now. What do we do? And one of the things, Damnation kind of entertains the idea of what if we try and improve the health of these river systems. And I wonder if that in the long term would actually improve our own human systems.
Because we're finding out we are not alone in the world. It's hard for humans to comprehend that, but even the smallest, like insect and flora and fauna, I mean, this supports human life in ways we have not really understood before. So when we lose those, things change maybe over a decade, 5 decades, whatever, beyond what we would understand. Well, now if we take out the dams or some of the dams, with the drought and everything, will it improve? Well, I mean, what are our options?
That's the hope, is that we improve both the health of the ecosystems and our own systems by taking out a select few dams.
Okay.
It's not like there's some massive movement to take out all dams, and in fact, it's unproductive and not even really accurate to portray dams as good or bad.
Okay.
As either, you know, the icon of Western development or to demonize them as the killer of wild rivers. It just doesn't serve the purpose. It polarizes the discussion.
Because we do still need some
Absolutely,
dams.
we need dams. Absolutely. But there are some that have served their purpose and that we decided, you know what, we will improve the situation by taking out these select few. And like I said, there's no textbook. This is new territory. So we're using these first few dam removal projects to experiment, to see if it is feasible and in what ways it works and doesn't work.
Yeah, because some dams could be obsolete. And so that's the determination. How do you determine if we no longer need those?
Well, you have to weigh out the cost, you know, a cost-benefit analysis. Do we need the water storage? Do we need that water for irrigation, or do we need the dam for hydroelectricity? In some cases, like I think it might have been the Elwha, you can replace the amount of hydroelectricity produced by that dam with 3 wind turbines. So
Really?
that's just one example of how, when you really look at the usefulness of some particular dams, it's like, well, you know what? Bringing back the salmon and bringing back the life of that wild river is worth more than the electricity we get from it, or maybe the water we get for agriculture.
So it can be more economical and more reasonable.
Truly beneficial for us.
Sure.
And the ecosystem. And so those are the situations that you want to hop on, and, there are many other dams that have not outlived their usefulness that are very important.
Good.
And we keep those.
Yes, okay. Now, agriculture, as I understand it, is one of the largest users of water behind dams, Joel. Is that true?
Yes. Globally, it averages from between 70 and 90%. In states like California and the Central Valley, it's up to 90%. So agriculture really is, when you're looking at water use and the need for dams, and not just dams, but diversions away from reservoirs to deliver water far away, it's agriculture primarily.
Okay, but we still need that. We still need
absolutely. We need food on our tables.
Yes,
there's no doubt about it. It's just that I think again, we need to rethink our food systems in the country. We need to really look at them and say, how can we make them more efficient and resilient against drought? And we're in the the dusk of the fossil fuel era. I mean, they're fossil fuel intensive and they're water intensive, and so we're trying to figure out how to do that, how to make them more water efficient and energy efficient, because right now they're not. I mean, we spend a lot of fossil fuels transporting water through pipes and canals from Lake Mead and Lake Powell to faraway places.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Which at this point, until we change things, we wouldn't know how to do that. We have greenhouses that are becoming more and more and more popular, which, as you say, may be the technological clean way to begin to change our food growing process, to do just what you say, with solar, with wind power, with enclosed space, different kinds of using less water to grow as good or better and more food.
Yes, and also, one way to improve our food systems would be to make it less centralized, more decentralized. Instead of growing, sometimes our country gets a third of our winter vegetables, winter lettuce, from the Central Valley. So that lettuce gets shipped to Maine and Florida and Washington. And what we need to do, or it would benefit us to consider, how can we help get that system to where it's not so energy intensive. In other words, eat more regionally. What foods can we actually grow in any particular bioregion, and have your diet reflect that more?
Right. Which is healthier, the food's better, tastes better, I mean, all that kind of stuff. So again, with those movements, it changes possibly the need for dams.
Exactly.
But so what is it about, dams in general, and saying, because there's a lot of people, when you say, oh, we're going to take some dams down, like, what?
Yeah.
It's something that's never been brought out before, because again, 50, 60 years ago, it was huge. Dams were a lifesaver.
Yeah, dams represent human progress. When you take a tour of Hoover Dam, it is portrayed as the icon of human achievement. And so you don't want to mess with that. I mean, when you mess with that, for the folks that really see Hoover Dam and dams in general as an icon of human progress, you need to respect that. But at the same time, you can question it. And you can really ask yourself, do we need all these dams? And then the ones that make sense, like we discussed before, you can consider taking them out. But you're right, it's not a wholesale demolition of all dams. No. It is a thoughtful analysis of dams and identifying the ones that truly make sense economically, politically, as well as ecologically to remove them. Sure.
Well, and through time, beavers have built dams. I mean, what's the difference?
Yes. I mean, I get asked that often. I say, so dams, how are dams bad if beavers were building millions of dams across the country? When we first showed up as Europeans on the East Coast, there's dams everywhere. So dams aren't bad. And, the answer to that is, you're right, all dams aren't bad. Matter of fact, beaver dams improve the health of a landscape by several magnitudes, and we've seen that as once we removed beavers from many of our western watersheds, we've been kind of scratching our heads saying, so how come we can't get it healthier? And we realized that by reintroducing beavers, the health of the watershed increases tremendously. But beaver dams are very different than the Hoover Dams and Lake Meads and Grand Coulee Dam. Hoover Dam is a huge plug of cement, impermeable for the most part. They don't like to say leaks. There's seepage here and there in Hoover Dam, but really it's a relatively impermeable cement plug. But beaver dams are made of sticks and mud. Water flows through them, and when a flood comes, that beaver dam is demolished and the beavers rebuild it. So it's really a matter of scale.
Sure.
Right?
So that way the river below can maintain its health, and it's kind of best of both worlds in that sense.
Sure.
Well, you know, the first explorer down Powell, named after him, of course, down the Colorado River, John Wesley Powell, he had some ideas about what we should do, how we should use that water.
Yes. Well, he saw that the West was inherently different than the East. And the most noticeable attribute that was different was it was drier. Once you get west of the 100th meridian, you cannot grow crops on rainfall alone. So we need to irrigate. Anything you're trying to grow, it needs irrigation west of the 100th meridian, which is right about down the center of the, just east of the Rockies. And so John Wesley Powell tried to convince Congress back in the mid to late 1800s that we needed to perhaps look at the West from a watershed perspective and maybe even organize our political states by watershed. And so each state would have a river running right down the middle of it, and they would have access to that river, and we wouldn't have to pipe water so far away using so many fossil fuels and succumb to evaporation and fossil fuel use. So, I mean, it's not like we're going to advocate for watershed states now, of course, but we can help folks to think more like from a watershed perspective.
Absolutely. Well, again, Damnation, a film coming this Thursday, 7 o'clock at the Prescott College Crossroads Center. Admission is absolutely free, and it'll give you more information and the background of dams, what they're used for, what we need them for, what we don't need them for. Katie Lee will be there.
Yes, she will.
And Katie's in the film. She's a local from Jerome.
Yeah, she lives up in Jerome. She's a river advocate, really an unabashed advocate for wild rivers in general, and the Colorado in particular. And she's written books and written songs and has some beautiful photographs, all of which will be on display at the film screening. And she'll be on hand to help us introduce the film and share her perspective on wild rivers.
Wonderful. Well, and she is in the film, and I'll tell you, I haven't seen Katie for many years, but she is a tremendous lady and certainly an icon in our area.
It's great to have her.
Yeah. Be a treat to have her. Damnation, Thursday, 7 o'clock, Prescott Crossroads Center. Find out about dams. Joel Barnes, Prescott College, nice to have you with us.
Thanks, Angie.